Let's imagine that we had a part that was built, say, in the 1950s, the machine, and we no longer have spare parts. The company's gone out of business, and the original part was a casting, maybe made in the thousands, and now we need to make a one-off weldment to replace the cast part. And so let's look at how we might do that weldment. So I'm going to do this as multiple separate parts that we can weld together. So I've got this part right here. I think I'm going to do that as a rectangle coming over here. And most of these dimensions are for the spline, so we can ignore most of the dimensions that are on the original drawing. And then I'm going to do this as a rectangle here, and this is a rectangle here, and then I'll put a rib in here, drill our holes, or weld the part up and then drill our holes. So I'm going to start on the front plane, and I think I'll put the origin at this location right here. I see a lot of these dimensions come off of this line right here, and then this hole is going to be an important location. Most of these dimensions come off of that hole. So I'm going to use this part right here as an origin. And so I'm going to start out by drawing a rectangle out in space, about like that. And then I'm going to make the width of this rectangle, let's look at this for a minute. So from here over to here is 300, and then this is 50 from here to here, so that means from here to here is 25. So I'm going to dimension this distance as the 300, and I might put that in as an equation so that I can come back later and I know why that was created the way it is. So I'm going to put in equal 300 plus the 25, and I'll say okay to that. And so we look at the drawing, we see this distance is 300, we wonder where did the 25 come from. If we double click on that, we see that it was an equation. Maybe that would lead us then to, a year from now, figuring out where that 25 came from. Alright, then I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to select the origin. I'm going to put that coincident, and then I need to put the distance from here to here, or from here to here, as the 25. So I'll dimension from here to the origin as 25. And then I'll dimension this distance 60. Okay, so we see that this rectangle, it turns black, everything's fully defined, and I think I'll go ahead and put the rectangles in here for the vertical part and for the foot on this as well. So I'm going to draw another rectangle, and I'm going to draw that from here down to here, and then I'll draw a third rectangle, and I'm going to draw that, and I'll put it about like this, and then I'll drag this point over till it snaps to that point. So I put in this rectangle and this rectangle. I'm going to dimension the distance from the bottom of this line to this line as 100. And so I'll dimension from here to here as 100. And then I see the distance from here to here is 25. So I'll dimension that as 25. And then I need this width, and let's make this width, the distance from here over to here is 60. And I'll escape out of the dimension commands. Now notice some of these lines are thinner than others. In general, SolidWorks really doesn't want you to put multiple sketches or multiple enclosed areas like this in a single sketch. So we could have done this as sketch 1, sketch 2, sketch 3, but in this case it's just 3 simple rectangles, and we may want to turn on the visibility of the shaded contours and so we see that we have 3 closed areas. I usually work with that turned off, but you can turn that shaded contours on or off. And I change the colors. Your colors would probably be a light blue rather than this color. And then I'm going to start doing some extrusions. And now, because we have 3 separate closed areas, we'll have to tell it what we want to extrude in the order that we want to extrude it. So I'm going to go to the Features tab, and I'm going to do an extrude. But I'm going to, so if I do the extrude, I could select the selected contour that I want, but I'm going to escape out of this, and let's assume that we had clicked the confirmation corner to get out of Sketch. And notice all of our dimensions disappear when we exit the Sketch. I'll go ahead and save this, and so let me save this, and let's say that I do extrude now. It's going to tell me to select a plane on which to create a sketch, or number 2, select an existing sketch. And so I can select this sketch now to use that. And so that's how you clear that. The other way, let's see, there's one other thing I wanted to show here. I could highlight that sketch over here so that it's highlighted blue before I begin the extrude command. And so I do the extrude, and then I need to select that selected contour. So that was 3 different ways: either stay in Sketch and go ahead and select the contour, exit Sketch, select the edge and start to extrude, or start to extrude and then select the edge, or highlight the sketch over in the browser. Alright, let's go ahead and extrude this. So that distance is 50, and I want to go mid-plane. So instead of blind, I'm going to do mid-plane, and I'll do that at a distance of 50, and I'll say OK to that. Alright, when I did that, my sketch was consumed, and so I need to see that sketch back again. So I'll expand, I'll click on this arrow to expand that feature, and right click on this sketch and click on this eyeball to show that sketch. And then I'm going to click on this rectangle, and I'll do extrude again, and notice that it only got a portion in between here, and it said this thin feature, and so it selected only that line. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to delete that selection, and then I'll click inside of the box, and again it's saying thin feature again. I don't want the thin feature, so the thin feature gives it a uniform wall thickness going all the way around. That's not what I want, so I'm going to uncheck thin feature, and now it picks the inside of that box, and I'm going to uncheck make sure we're making a weldment. So we're going to do 3 parts that need to be welded together, actually 4 parts. So uncheck merge results, and I want to go mid-plane, a distance of 50 millimeters. And so check up here, make sure now you have 2 solid bodies, not just 1. And then I'll do extrude again, and I'll select this line. It goes to thin feature. I don't want thin feature. I'll right click, clear the previous selection in the selected contours. I'll select inside that box. I want to go mid-plane, and for this one I want to go from here to here, so that's a distance of 180. And don't forget to uncheck merge result. I'm going to purposely forget and show you how to fix that. So I'll say OK to that, and I'm going to hide this sketch. I'm done with that sketch, and I happen to notice, oh no, I only have 2 solid bodies here, and I'm supposed to have 1, 2, 3 solid bodies. And also, if I rotate around here, notice there's no line going across here, so this is all 1 solid body. This would be expensive to take a block of material and cut all of that away here and over here. So if we just cut a slab like this and then this piece, we can weld those together. So let's go back to that last extrusion, and I'm going to say edit feature on that. I'll right click edit feature and uncheck that merge bodies. And so now we have 3 solid bodies, and notice there's a line going across there. So be careful on that you if you're making a weldment, we want these to be 3 simple parts. And then I'm going to put a rib in here, and there's several different ways that we could do this. And I think what I'm going to do is there is a rib tool command, and I may or may not use that rib tool command. Let me. I could draw this as a line here. I'm going to make a little bit of a change from the original. Well, let's just see how this goes. So I want to look at this from the front view, and I'm going to start a new sketch on the front plane, and I'm going to draw a line somewhere along this line, but not at the midpoint, not here. I don't really know where it's at, so I'm going to click over here on this line. I'm going to come over here to this line, but again, not at the midpoint. I'll put it somewhere along this line. And then I'm going to come up vertically, and I'll click about right there, and I want to come parallel to this line. So if you scrub that line, don't click on it, just scrub it. Notice you get what I call a yellow brick road, a tracking line here, that if you come along here, and notice also that it's showing a glyph for a parallel relation. And I'm going to select on this line, and I'll come over here and I'll select it to close that off. Now I'm trying to decide whether I want to do this as a rib feature. I think what I'll do is I'll do it as extrusion. We'll do a rib feature on a later problem. So this is going to vary a little bit from the original in the way that it looks. So I'm going to dimension the distance, so the 50 from here to here. So from here up to here is 50. And I'm going to then dimension the distance from the origin over to this point is 102. And then I'm going to give this some width across here, so I'll select this line, I'll select this line, and I'm thinking if I'm buying stock, I might be able to get 25, or I might be able to get 30. You know, the standard stock size, and I'm going to guess that I'm going to say 30. Okay, and that all turns black. It's all fully defined. So the keys was don't click on the midpoint of this line, don't pick on the midpoint of this line, although that's where it is. I think on this one it is actually at the midpoint, but I wanted to make sure I could put in that dimension in case I want to change that. And then for the rib, it says that it's 8 wide. I'm going to assume that we might not be able to buy stock that's 8 thick, but we can probably buy stock that's 10 millimeters thick. And by the way, if I didn't mention earlier, your unit should be millimeters, metric units. So I'm going to go to the Features tab, and I'll do Extrude. And I have this area selected. And then I want to go a distance of 10 millimeters, so I'm going to make a change on that from the drawing, assuming that we can get 10 millimeter thick stock standard. And I'll tell it mid-plane. And so we can tell, you know, it really doesn't matter what that thickness is. It's just to add some support here. And so as long as it's thick enough to add that support, so making that design change probably doesn't negate anything as far as this part working in the assembly. Right now, make sure you uncheck merge results so that you'll have a separate part here. So now I have 4 solid bodies. Alright, I'm going to assume that we don't really need this rounded off, but if for some reason we did, we could put a fillet on this edge and that edge over there. But let's go ahead and put the hole in here. So I'm going to hit the space bar, and I'm going to click here to go to the top view, or you can click on this down arrow and click the top view there. And in an earlier lab we saw that yours might come in rotated at a different angle. If you hold down the Alt key and hit the left or right arrow keys, so for example if yours comes in 180 degrees and you want it to look like it does in a drawing, so that you don't get confused about what you're doing, just hold the Alt key and the left or right arrow key. Alright, I'm going to do a sketch, or actually I'm going to put a hole on this face. So let's select the face first. So we've seen that normally we need to select the face where we want the hole before we start the hole wizard. So then I'll start the hole wizard. And in the real world, we would probably weld all of this together, and we might leave some additional material here on the bottom where we could machine that perfectly flat, perpendicular to the hole that we're going to put in here. But we'll just leave out those steps and just model it as the finished part. I'm going to do this as a legacy hole. It's going to be a non-standard hole, so I'll do it as a legacy hole. And for the hole type, I'm going to do counterbore drilled. And let's go ahead and put the position in now. So I'll select position, click on the positions tab. I'll select the origin, and then I'll go back to the type so we can put in the dimensions. The diameter of the drill itself is 30. So I'll change this to 30. Double click on that, change that to 30. Hit the tab key. The depth will be through all. We don't need to change that. Actually, down here someplace it's probably already set for through all. And the counterbore diameter is 40, and so that's what I have in here. And then the counterbore depth is 15, so let's change that to 15, and then I'll select OK to that. So that puts my hole through the part in that location. Alright, then I want to put this hole over here in the side. Again, so I'll go to the right side view, or the front view in this case. Now I could do this hole as either a hole feature or as a extruded circle. There is an advantage that we'll see later on to using the hole feature, but I think I'm just going to do it as an extruded circle. So I'm going to right click on this face, and I'll tell it to create a new sketch, and I'll draw a circle about right here, and then I'll dimension. The diameter of that circle is 20, and then the height from the bottom of the part, make sure you go from the bottom of the part up to the center of the hole, is 105. And then the location of this hole over from the origin is 254. So I'll dimension from here over to here as 254. And then we'll do an extrude cut. So I'll go to my features tab, and I'll do extrude cut. Make sure it's extrude cut, not extrude. I'll do extrude cut, and I'm going to tell it to go mid plane through all, or through all both directions. Actually, I started it over here, not in the middle of the part, so we just need to go through all, and it will put that hole in there. Okay, so I've got that hole. Need to save this and do something right. Save it, save often. Alright, then I want to put this hole back here. So I'm going to hit the space bar. I'll go around to the right side view, and I'm going to right click on this face, and I'll tell it to do a new sketch. And this time I'm going to draw a construction line from the midpoint of this line. So I track along here until I see it highlights the midpoint. And I'm going to come up some distance for that. And then I'm going to dimension this as 18. So I'll dimension this line as 18. And I'll draw a circle at the end of this line. And I'm going to do that as 12.5. So I'll dimension that as 12.5. And then we'll do an extrude cut. Now it rounded that off to 13, but see, if I double click on it, it is still 12.5. And actually, if I click on that once and I come over here to where it says tolerance precision, and I'll change that to 1 decimal place, we can see that that decimal place in there. Alright, then I'm going to extrude cut this circle through the part. And so I will go to the Features tab, and let's assume that we had gone ahead and accepted that. If you come over here and highlight it, before you start the extrude command, I'll do extrude cut, so it knows that that's what the profile that you want to cut. We'll tell it to go through all, and we'll say OK to that. Alright, then I'm going to put these 4 holes up here in the top, and we'll assume that these fillets here aren't really needed, but if we want to add those, that's pretty easy to add those fillets. So I'll hit the space bar, go to the top view, and I'm going to start a new sketch, and I could either do this from the top view or from the bottom view. I'm going to start a new sketch on this face, and I'll draw a rectangle about like that, and then I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint. Make sure you snap to the midpoint of this line over to the origin, and I need to make sure this line is horizontal. Now that'll center everything up, so I'll click on that line, I'll select horizontal. Now you might have gotten it horizontal when you originally created it, but you have to make sure you get it to the midpoint of this line, so if I drag this, it stays equal distance on either side of that line. Alright, then I'll put some dimensions on here, so I'm going to dimension the distance from here to here is 40, so I'll dimension that as 40. And then the distance from here over to the origin is 250. So from here to here is 250. And then the distance from here to here is 160. Okay, we see that sketch turns black. Now I don't have to do the next step, but I just want this hole here, 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 and here. Now I'm going to do a crossing window and change all of that to construction geometry. Alright, then I'm going to finish sketch, and I could have put circles here, 4 circles, and extrude cut those circles, or I can select that face. I'll go to the hole wizard, and we'll tell it to do just a standard hole. And now it says asymmetric here, but where it says hole type dowel holes, click on this down arrow and select the drill sizes, and then I'll click on this down arrow, and I'll go down and find the diameter is 9, so I'll go down and find 9. So there's my drill size. I want it to be through all, and I can put a countersink on here if I want to, and normally we do break sharp edges. In fact, I might do a near side countersink and a far side countersink, but I'll just well, let's go ahead and do that. Let's do a far side countersink as well, and so that'll break the sharp edges on those holes. In other CAD software, you may need to add the chamfer on the other side separately, so you could do a countersink on one side, or you could just do both sides as a chamfer. And then I'm going to go to the positions, and I'll select this point, this point, this point, this point, and then I will come up here and say OK to that to put those 4 holes through the part. I'll hide that location sketch, and then to finish it up, put the weld beads on here. And so if I go to the weldment And I have already loaded the fillet bead, so this isn't automatically on the Weldment's ribbon. You need to customize and add this. And so I'm going to do fillet bead, and for face number 1 I'm going to select this face, and then I'll go to face 2 and I'll select this face, and let's make that a little bit bigger, let's say 5 millimeters. And then I'm going to go around to the other side and see if I can do this one at the same time. So face 2 on that side as well. So that's going to put that weld bead and that weld bead. And so I have those two weld beads on here. And now we would probably have a weld bead along here, but in the CAD software we just have to do that as a weld note. Unless we do a preparation where we grind the edge on here first, and so we'll just assume that we'll do that in the drawing. We'll put a note on the drawing or for that type of weld that we want to put along there. But every place else in here, going around this, going around here, any place that we can put in the fillet weld bead, go ahead and add those weld beads.